Align is a podcast for the awakened soul, where we get real on all things spirituality and navigating the human experience. Let's dive in. Hello. So good to have you here with me today. If you are returning, so grateful to have you back with me. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Crystal Cook, and I'm here to teach you how to use your intuition partnered with spiritual and energetic healing concepts and tools so that you can heal and live the life that you are destined to heal. Before we dive in, super quick plug, I launched my brand new healing program this week, also called Align. How fitting. And this program is all about giving you the tools, giving you access to the healing, the tools, the techniques, the integration exercises with support from me so that you can totally transform the reality that you're living in. I'm not going to go deeper than that. Instead, I'm going to place the link in the description box below, so make sure that you check that out if you are serious about being on your healing journey and up-leveling. One thing that I do want to mention, because it is time sensitive, is right now you can get in and get an entire month's access for just $11, and that is ending. So make sure you jump on that promotion soon. So let's dive on into our topic for today. And really quick, before you hear the topic, please don't feel like you should run away. Maybe thinking that it's not that big a deal, because I actually would say and argue that today's topic is probably one of the most important things I could ever talk about. And it's all about diving into what does healing mean and what all is encompassed in this concept of healing. And the reason why this is so important is because we cannot heal what we are not aware of. And we can't become aware of something if we don't even understand all of the different components that go into it. So in today's episode, I'm going to walk you through what healing really is, what it means from a spiritual and energetic perspective, and then give you some takeaways on how you can start to move the dial. Now, one other thing that I do want to mention is I always look at healing from the spiritual and energetic perspective. So when I talk about healing, I'm talking about it under a few assumptions. Assumption number one is that we are all divine beings having a human experience. Assumption number two is that we all reincarnate, that our soul chooses to go through Earth school and chooses to go through the human experience time and time again to master lessons, balance karma, and experience experiences. Now, simultaneously, I never want to push my belief system on you. That is not what this is about. So you should always listen to your own intuition and decide and pay attention to in your body what is resonating with you. If I ever say something that doesn't resonate, that's okay. Take what does resonate and leave the rest. But the point is to really provide that education and expand your level of consciousness and give you the acumen to decide what feels like it fits for your life. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about healing now. Oftentimes a trap that people fall into is they consider healing to be just about this lifetime, when that couldn't be further from the truth. Every single one of us is born with past life trauma, unmet or unlearned karmic lessons, karma that we need to balance, and trauma in our genetic makeup. And so none of us, no two humans, have the same starting point when we are actually born, right? We are not a blank slate. And let's talk about each of these, on a deeper level. I'm going to start with the DNA, the trauma in the DNA, because this is something that a lot of people don't realize or recognize. There was a study done several years ago, and before I share this study, please know I never endorse the harming of any type of animal. I'm sharing this with you for the pure data behind this so that you can understand. But there was a study done several years ago to better understand how generational trauma is passed on within an ancestral line. And so for this study, they used a group of mice and they intentionally electrocuted the original group of mice. After they did that, they reproduced that group of mice 6 times. So there were 6 lines of this group of mice that had all come from the original group of mice that had gone through the electrocution process. Meanwhile, every generation that was born after that group of mice that had been electrocuted, they were not electrocuted. But what the study showed was that when these mice, the mice that were born to the original mice and in this ancestral line, even though they were never electrocuted, they had the same trigger and trauma responses when the electrocution machine would turn on, and they heard that same sound. And so this tells us that we could all, you, me, everyone in our lives, be reacting to things in life based on trauma and experiences that we never even went through firsthand. And so just think about that for a second, right? Like, is that blowing your mind yet? That you could have had ancestors that you never met that went through deep traumatic experiences 6 up to 7 generations ago that are literally driving, motivating, and creating your reality. And so that is just one component of healing that we're talking about. Then when you consider all of the other incarnations that you've had, where yes, potentially traumatic events happened, and if that trauma wasn't healed, you bring that with you. And then you have your karma, right? We know that karma, we can attract or have positive or quote unquote negative karma. We can have karma where we've put good into the universe, and therefore in this lifetime we're attracting that back even from previous lifetimes, or vice versa. So there are many different things that are broken into this healing bucket, and we haven't even talked about our childhood or other experiences that we might have gone through in this lifetime, because being a human is hard. And so when you approach healing from a spiritual and energetic perspective, you are approaching it to heal all of that. You are healing this current lifetime and all other lifetimes ever lived by your soul. You are healing the karmic lessons and learning how to master those lessons so that when you do reincarnate again, you don't once again have to face that same cycle. You are healing the DNA and your ancestral line so that not only do you break free from the trauma that was incurred from your ancestors, but so do all of the other members of your family after you. And you are healing anything that has happened to you in this lifetime, whether you remember it or not, because we know that many of us who have endured dysfunctional childhoods don't even remember what it is that happened to us, because our brain intentionally forgot as a way for us to continue to survive, right? It's a coping mechanism, a survival strategy. And that's another really important topic that a lot of people will ask me is, well, how do I heal what it is that I can't remember? There's a couple of things to think about there. Number one, if you feel like you are in a state where you're prepared to remember, there are tools that you can use, such as past life and interlife regression. These stem from hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy has roughly a 93% success rate in healing when used appropriately. So that's something that I would love for everyone to experience in their divine timing when it's the right time for them. Because it is a very deep modality, you have to be careful with re-traumatization. So we just have to be mindful. It's not necessarily something that every single human is ready for right now. The other part of it is that you do not have to remember everything to heal it, right? So let's use your childhood as an example. And let's say that you maybe went through some type of abuse that you don't even recall when you were a little child. Then what we're doing there is we're just bringing the intention and the awareness to any childhood experiences that might still be limiting us today. And then we're linking it to how it might be limiting us. This is energy tracing. So I'm going to break this down in an example for you so that you can understand what this would feel like. Let's say that a pattern or a problem or a pain point that you have in your life today is that you struggle with emotional numbing. You don't like to feel distressing feelings. And so when they start to pop up, you find a way to sweep them under the rug. That could be, using some type of substance. Doesn't have to be. It could be food. It could be sex. It could be shopping, right? People use different behaviors to numb themselves. So what we would want to do is understand, okay, well, when is the first time that we can recall that numbing behavior beginning? And now that the actual techniques or the actual things that we might be engaging in, the maladaptive coping skills that we might be engaging in, might have morphed over the years, right? We might not have been using booze to numb our feelings when we were 10. So we're not necessarily looking for the exact pattern, but more digging even deeper and trying to understand, okay, well, how might emotional numbing have been showing up for me as a child? And then when we can trace that, we can start to get hints about, all right, well, now what was happening in our lives? Who was a key player in our lives? Then we're going to start to release the energies and the imprints and anything else that might be attached from that specific time period. That's going to then help us move the dial so that we can heal the symptom of emotional numbing. This is why a lot of people stay stuck, because they notice the symptom, but they never trace it to where it actually came from. That's the core wound. And if we keep trying to manage symptoms, but we haven't yet identified what the core wound is, well, guess what? The symptom is going to keep coming back, right? So I like to use drinking, alcohol abuse for this one, because society will be so fast to look at someone that's struggling with any type of addiction, whether it's alcohol or something different, and they won't understand that the reason why a lot of these people struggle is because if they do choose to go get help into a rehab center, trauma isn't getting healed. Now, I don't mean to put a blanket statement out there, because that's not the case for every single center. But I have, and I used to support people with this, and I'm also sober, so I feel very educated with the personal experience to talk on this. There are a lot of times when that trauma work is not done, right? And people aren't taught to identify why they were numbing or drinking or doing whatever it was that they were doing to begin with. And if you can't understand that why, then the symptom is going to continue to pop up. Or what might happen is you might successfully stop one behavior. We'll stick with the example of drinking. You might stop the behavior of drinking and then instead start to binge on food. Well, that's not helpful either, because we've taken one maladaptive coping strategy and all we've done is replaced it with another maladaptive coping strategy. And that's going to have totally different consequences, right? So now we're adding more trauma to the trauma and it's not getting fixed. And so understanding that core wound is a really critical part to your healing. This is starting to give you some understanding on how the healing process works and all of the different components that go into it. And so now let's talk a little bit around all of the different things that we need to heal, all of the different elements and layers. So we've talked about that we need to address past lives, right? Let's think a little bit more now toward this lifetime. We need to address any DNA trauma, any trauma that might be stuck within our DNA. And then we also have our brain, our nervous system, okay? Because the nervous system becomes dysregulated. Even though the brain is part of the nervous system, I consider it separate because we also need to be doing mindset work. These are different functions, right? And then we also have to be thinking about any trauma, trapped emotions, stagnant energies, imprints that might be stuck within our actual body, whether it's within the tissue, the muscles, the organs, etc. Then you also have your energetic body. So if you're familiar with chakras, right? You have your 7 primary chakras within your physical body. So these are the ones that usually most people are aware of. Your crown chakra, your third eye, throat, heart, solar, sacral, and root. And then you have the chakras within your energetic body. there are 5 additional of these, right? So your Earth Star chakra sits at the base below your root, and then you have the other chakras above your head, above your crown, that are in your energetic field. And then it's said and it's believed that we have hundreds of other chakras and meridian points throughout our actual physical body. So, but of course you don't have to rattle those all off, but you do need to be aware of your chakras, because there's a difference between energy that we are releasing when we're going through the healing process. We have to identify, heal, and release your energy, which is stagnant energy. It's the life force energy that's always flowing through you. And what happens is when we have wounds, whether you want to call it trauma or not, or something different, programs, conditionings, limiting beliefs, all of that's included in what we're talking about, then life force cannot flow through your body anymore. And this becomes stagnant energy. It gets stuck. It's a literal blockage. So when you hear people say, oh, my chakras are blocked, well, this is what they're talking about, right? It's the same energy that causes disease. That energy gets stuck in the body and then manifests as illness. And that can show up differently for everyone depending on where it's getting stuck. An amazing book, by the way, that you can look into is called Soul Speak, and it was actually written by Dolores Cannon's daughter. And what I love about this book is there's a reference in the back of it where it gives all of the different symptoms that you might be dealing with, and it will explain why, what the ailment is that's causing that. So like as an example, Alzheimer's is in there, and it talks about, don't quote me, this is not verbatim, but something about how there's a desire for that person to escape their body. So if you have something that you're dealing with right now in your reality, in your health, that would be a great resource for you to take a look at and to get some guidance there too as to what might be going on. So we talked about your energy, which manifests as that stagnant energy. Then there's also the energy of other people. We can absorb energy and then carry that from other people, and it's our ego that lets that in. There are lots of different types of energies. I'm not going to break them down now, but that is the type of content that I cover in a line if that interests you, so that you can learn to release it. But what I do want you to understand is that not only do we carry our own stuff, quote unquote, right? But we also carry that unhealed stuff of other people. A great example of this, if you've ever heard of it before, is an energetic cord. So a lot of people will talk about cord cutting. Remember, we're not actually cutting a cord, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but we alchemize and transmute it. It can be changed into something else. And so that's what we're doing when we're hearing about those things. But let's say that we are in an unhealthy relationship or a codependent relationship, or it's unbalanced. That's an example of when cords can form. We don't want to carry energy even from those that we love the most, right? I have 2 little boys. Obviously, I adore them more than anyone else in this world. I don't want to carry their energy, and I don't want them carrying mine, because when we're carrying someone else's energy, this is what can impact our vibration and alter our personality, and it can cause looping patterns in our lives. There are different types of energies that we can carry from people that might have tried to previously control or manipulate us. And so this would be an example of, we could be carrying that energy, and even if that person has not been in our physical reality for weeks, months, or years, we might still be behaving as if they are, because their energy is still orbiting our bodies. And so this is where the spiritual and energetic tools come into play. We're bringing our awareness, we're identifying where we might be carrying some of this energy so that we can finally release it. And it's just in that simple process, not even doing all of the other work that we've already talked about, that right away, that's going to eliminate distressing thoughts and feelings, and it's going to shift behaviors if it was coming from someone else's energy. And it's going to immediately raise our vibration. There is also a difference between energy clearing and energy healing. So energy clearing is something that every single person should be doing every day because everything's an energetic exchange. So let's say that you and I sit down and have coffee and we exchange energy, or I attach to you, right? Unintentionally attach to you, then an energy clearing would be a great tool to be using to immediately clear and release that. Energy healing is going deeper. Energy healing is actually addressing that core wound that we were talking about a couple of minutes ago. It's going into the physical body and identifying what it is that might have happened. What traumatic or difficult or challenging events are causing the unwanted thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that we're dealing with today. And then releasing that so that we can have an easier time shifting those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So much, right? How are you feeling? I know you can't respond to me, but it would be good for you to do a check-in with your own self right now and let me know in the comments. I would love to hear, as you're listening to this, what is coming up for you? What is the biggest aha that you are having as you're listening to this and learning and understanding what all is included in healing? Healing is complex, and because none of us have the same starting line, we should never be comparing ourselves to someone else's journey. We know that comparison, as the quote goes, is the thief of all joy. And we're looking to people and situations outside of ourselves when spiritual and energetic healing is all about taking the focus of everyone, taking the focus off of everyone and everything in our external reality and instead putting it onto ourselves. And so we want to make sure that we're only comparing ourselves to ourselves. No decision is ever right or wrong. Everything is about a spectrum of healthy. And so if you just set your intention to be healthier and more aligned today than you were yesterday, then you know that you're moving the benchmark and you're giving yourself a realistic intention to be achieving. A lot of people will ask me, well, how do I know when I am done healing? And you might not like this answer, but the truth is that we're never done healing, right? If healing was a finish line, then there would be a bunch of a bunch of light bodies floating all over Earth, but that's not the case because healing is not a finish line. We continue to go through this journey until we eventually achieve perfection and then we don't incarnate anymore. So if you're here in this human incarnation, it's because there is still more healing to be done, and that's okay. We don't want to look at healing like this daunting, negative thing. And we also don't need to feel like we've had a traumatic or dysfunctional life to say that we've needed healing, because again, we could have had different experiences that we don't remember from past lives. And the reality is that we all have limiting beliefs and sabotaging patterns that are keeping us stuck no matter what level of life we are at. So healing is truly something that we all need. And when you learn to embrace it, and instead just see it as your way of living, everything is going to shift for you. We are all always healing if we choose to do the work. I hope today's episode was helpful for you as you continue to go through your own journey and you learn more about what this process is like. So if you don't mind, please like this video, this podcast episode, and subscribe if this resonated with you. Please let me know how you're feeling in the comments, what was coming up for you. And don't forget to look for the link for Align if you feel like you might want to dive deeper with some expert support and a community of others to go through this journey with. Sending my love, and we will chat soon.